my beautiful angels, it's Kat. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome. I hope everyone is doing great. So I can't believe that I'm making this video, but I just recently had very deep soul searching thoughts, and I was actually contemplating to do this video, and I decided, you know what, why not? I do believe that there's so many people out there who are struggling with weight and can really identify to the same problems and the similar issues and anxiety triggers. So as you can see from the title, we are going to talk today about anxiety triggers versus being fat. And before we are going to move forward with this video, I just wanted to put a disclaimer that this video is not to offend anyone. I just, as always, talk from my personal experience, and this is not about pointing fingers at anyone. Being overweight and obese all my life myself, I do feel that I have a lot of experience in that department, and I can definitely tell you some of the interesting anxiety triggers that probably none of my friends or family will ever realize that I have. Or I feel like anyone with the, I hate that word, but regular size people will never understand what overweight person is going through on a daily basis with the very tiny little things. Over the years, I have to admit that I've learned how to deal with it, and I've learned how to just basically move on with my life without any mental distress. But I know that there are a lot of people that can't handle it in the same way as I did, and hopefully this video will bring you a little bit more of a relief and maybe a little bit of help, because at the end of the day, these things happen every single day, and these are very tiny little, almost like a silly things. Again, a lot of people are not even aware of the fact that overweight person might struggles with those issues. So before I start, I just want to remind you guys, as always, if you do like weight loss related videos and you do want to follow my weight loss journey, definitely consider to subscribe and press the notification bell so you won't miss any of my videos. Obviously, share any comment and advice in the comment section down below, and if you do like this video, leave a thumbs up. So without further ado, let's get started with this video. So anxiety triggers versus being fat. Number one, getting in and out of the back seat of the 3-door car. I know it sounds silly, because it is, and I can tell you from my personal experience, it was a massive anxiety trigger for me. Back at the high school times, it did happen to me a lot, and to be fair, at the end of the day, I've learned from that experience that when I spoke up about my issues and about my problem, it's just got easier. So let me tell you what I mean by that. My best friend had a boyfriend at that time with a 3-door car, and obviously we were traveling or going places together, and every single time they would put me in the back seat, which is totally fine. I totally get it. It's your boyfriend, you sit in the front seat, that's cool. The only problem was that my best friend, as much as I love her and she loves me, I know that probably she wasn't aware how much really space do I need to push my gut out of the back seat. And let me tell you, every single time if I will have to get in the car or out of the car, she would always bend the back of the seat for me to get out or get in, but she will never push the seat forward enough for me to squeeze in. And as much as I obviously try to ignore it, I realize over the time that it's not as much as an anxiety trigger as it's very embarrassing at some times, especially if we would travel with our friends, and you know, there will be a lot of people in the car and everyone will just kind of stare at you and look at you to get out of this car. And obviously they were aware of my size, but they weren't aware of how much space do I really need to get out. So eventually I think her boyfriend realized that I think Kasia needs a little bit more space. So every time, it was kind of sweet of him, because every time when I would try to get out of the car, she will literally push the seat all the way forward, and he would say, there you go, Kasia, there you go, you have enough space, you can get out. And it was very sweet. And then eventually I would just start to be vocal about it, and I would just say to my friend every time if she would let me go out, I would be like, can you just push the seat a little bit forward, because my massive gut can't fit into this tiny little gap that you left me. And obviously we would laugh it out and we would make jokes around it. And of course I understand it is easier said than it's done, because as much as I was kind of at the good terms of the fact that I am a bigger girl and I do need more space, as a teenager you are still a little bit more embarrassed about it. As you get older, you just kind of realize it. Of course, if your weight disturbs you, you try to do everything to change it. But if you are okay with it, then you have to come to terms with the fact that, cool, yes, I am a bigger girl, I do need a bigger space. If I deal with it, everyone can, honestly, guys. And another thing that I've realized over the years, that if you are okay with who you are and how you look like, if you're not going to show yourself to people as your weight, no one will realize that. They will see you for you, not your weight. Obviously, there were times back in primary school and secondary school when it was a big issue for me. But when I went to terms with it and I kind of accepted myself and I liked myself, no one actually saw me for my weight. They would see me as a person. And as I was getting older and older, this is exactly how I was acting. And it wasn't an issue for anyone, because it shouldn't. And I can guarantee you it's an amazing feeling. But going back to our little car story, so as I said, if you will speak up and if you are in a, you know, in a company of your best friend, they will understand that. At the end of the day, guys, remember that your skinnier best friends or your skinnier friends or whatever, they've never been in a situation like that. So you can't really blame them for the fact that they don't really think about pushing the seat all the way forward for you to get out, because they've never been in a situation like that. And again, you can't really blame them. You just need to speak up. Listen, push that seat all the way forward so I can get out comfortably. And that's it. It is something that you need to work on, but it will get easier day by day, I guarantee you that. And I know that this video, some of you might find silly, but believe me, being overweight in this society, it's about little things like that. It's not necessarily the fact of someone that comes to you in your face will tell you, oh, you're fat. It's not about that anymore. It's these little things that you kind of experience during your lifetime, and it kind of shapes your personality and shapes your mental state, that eventually, unfortunately, for some of people, if they are too weak, might take control over. And you know, things like depressions and stuff like that is very common these days. And that's why I want to speak out about it and tell you guys my experience. So number 2, airplane seatbelt. And I think I've talked about it briefly already in one of my videos, what I want to lose weight, and that was after my gastricband surgery. And I just wanted to tell you that airplane seatbelt is a massive trigger for a lot of people. And I know that because after my situation, after me discovering that the seatbelt is too small, I was kind of more observing people around me since that time, and I can see for a lot of people with a weight problem, it is a massive anxiety trigger. And technically it shouldn't be, because that's why you can always ask for a seatbelt extension. So just to give you an idea what I went through, I'm going to give you a little story, and this story actually means so much to me, because in that time I realized this is the time for me to change. I don't know why. I've actually had this conversation with my friends, with a family member who is struggling with weight, and I always said to everyone, you can always try and help people, to motivate them to change themselves, to lose weight, to be on a healthier lifestyle. But at the end of the day, if nothing clicks here in their head to do it, there's nothing you can do to help them. They have to do it themselves. They have to make that decision themselves. Because all my life, all my family members were trying to help me, trying to convince me that I have to lose weight. And it was never a visual aspect, it was always a medical matter. And as I got older and I heard some stuff from the doctors about my health conditions, about being into pre-diabetic stage, that's enough for me to make a decision that, right, there's no choice anymore. It's not about living your life as you are, it's about changing yourself, because when is the time? When it will be too late. So at that time when I realized that, on top of my medical consultation, it was the seatbelt situation as well. So I was going back from my hometown, that was around I think 3 years ago, and I sat on my seat on the airplane and I tried to fasten my seatbelt and it didn't fit. It wasn't the matter of me trying to squeeze it in to close it, it was literally a gap of this size. I just couldn't fasten my seatbelt. I remember mixed emotions at that time. It was almost like, nah, it's not happening. understanding. I kind of turn things like that around into a joke situation just because not to make anyone around me feel uncomfortable or this poor little fat girl can't go on the seatbelt. The older man sitting next to me was very sweet about it. He was trying to kind of help me. You know, it was very irresponsible of me and him actually, because I didn't even ask for seatbelt extension. Simply because I didn't know that you have to ask the flight attendant for seatbelt extension. I thought that maybe you have to pre-book it with your ticket when you buy it online. As I said, I've never been in a situation like that, and I just simply didn't know. So I survived that flight, but I can tell you guys that all this time while I was away in Poland, back in my country, there was nothing else that I was thinking about. Just the fact that I will have to go back to the airplane to get back to my home here, and there's nothing from stopping it. I will have to go through that embarrassment again. And these are tiny little things, but it means so much, and it affected me so much because I actually didn't enjoy my stay at all. Because consciously I knew that my weight was getting out of control at that time. But seeing it and being in this situation is just pushed all my triggers to the point when I don't want to say that I got into a depression, but again, it's not a safe situation to be in, just because if you are an emotional eater, this is how you want to react to anything. You are happy, you eat. You are sad, you eat. You are depressed, you eat even more. And it is a very vicious cycle, and it's a very dangerous cycle. So yeah, that's a little seatbelt situation. So that was number 2. I know that there are a lot of people who can relate to that. And as I said, there's nothing wrong with asking for a seatbelt extension. And a funny fact, actually, last year when I went to Turkey, there was this girl that was boarding the plane right before me. And I'm not gonna lie, she was big girl, but the way how she was carrying herself, honestly, the confidence was just exploding from her. And it was so good to see another person who is basically good and fine with themselves. Because if you are okay with that, if your health is okay, I mean, who are we to judge? And then she was boarding the plane, and the first thing that she said, and she wasn't even shy about it, because as I said, for most of the people that would be quite embarrassing. It would be more like, sorry, can I have a belt extension to this seat? She was more like, can you give me a belt extension hand to this seat, please? And you know, she was loud, she was bubbly, she was, you know, full of energy, full of happiness. That brought me back to the situations when I was too much in shock and embarrassment to even kind of find out from the flight attendant, what can I do in this situation? I was more scared probably they're gonna maybe try to remove me from the flight because I can't fit into the seatbelt. I don't know. Again, massive anxiety trigger. So yeah, that's number 2, guys, airplane seatbelt. Number 3, and don't laugh, is pointing at the fact that a chubby person started to sweat on the face. Yes, you heard that right. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I know it sounds stupid and hilarious, but it's true. It can be a massive anxiety trigger, especially for someone who is aware of their size. And at the end of the day, everyone who's overweight, they are aware of their size regardless if they're accepting themselves or no. So I never had a problem with the blood pressure. My health, regardless of my size, was always great. But our body reacts differently in a certain situation. Back at my childhood and in my teenager years, I would perform publicly pretty much all my life. I was a very open person, and I wasn't afraid, I wasn't shy person, and I would perform, whether that was acting, but mainly singing. So 2 of my secret passions, if you don't know yet, is singing and acting. So I would be always out there on the stage, in front of the audience, in front of the public. And it's very funny, because as much as I've never stressed myself enough to sweat a lot, it almost felt like my body is disconnected from my emotions. Because obviously everything depends when you're performing and how big audience you have, but at the end of the day, I've never been stressed enough to sweat a lot. My face had a different opinion. So basically every time if I would be on the stage, I will just start to sweat on my face to the point when I will be like, Jesus Christ, I need tissue, because it will start to drip in a second. It's very strange, it's very bizarre. I've never understood that. So the worst thing that you can do, and I've heard that a lot from my sister especially, but then I remember a few situations around me when people probably wanted to point at the fact, and there were people that they would sometimes, they would be like, oh, you started to sweat on your face a lot. Well, mate, do you think that I can't feel it? Do you think that I don't know that? Why you have to point at the fact that my face is wet? Let me tell you something about that. If you point at a chubby person who's starting to sweat on their face, it won't help. It will actually do totally opposite. I would always start to sweat even more. I have no idea why my body would react like that, but if someone will point at me back at that time that I'm sweating or my face is wet, my face will produce more sweat. And there's no stopping it. And again, if you are in a bigger group of people, your friends, and then all of a sudden someone will jump out of the crowd and point at the fact that you have so many drops on your face, I mean, just don't do that. P.S. You can offer a tissue. Number 4, when your best friends, your colleagues, your whoever in your life, they can see that your size is around 4 or 5 sizes bigger than them, but they still offer you their clothes in emergencies. Yes. It happened to me a lot, especially with my best friend, and as much as I love her and I know she wanted to help, there were times, especially at the high school, I would stay at her place so many times. Like, I absolutely love her, and even though we are really far away from each other right now, I think about her constantly. She's literally my best friend for life. And I know that she would never do that to make me feel uncomfortable or offend me, but it was so funny because every time when there was some emergency, I'm a very sloppy person. I mean, I was more back then than now, but obviously thing happens. So every time if there would be any emergency, I will spill something and I will just, you know, make my clothes dirty or whatever. There would be times when she would offer me clothes. But the thing is that her size compared to mine was probably like 4 or 5 sizes smaller. And obviously her clothes will never fit me. And it was so hilarious thinking now about it, because there would be situations when she would like, oh Kasia, don't worry, like this is the jumper, you know, it's oversized, it's baggy on me, so it should be fine on you. Well, it doesn't work like that. The fact that something is baggy and oversized on you is because it's supposed to be, because of the style of the clothing. So it doesn't mean that my big gut will fit into it. So that's one thing that obviously if you do see your chubby friend, you know, something happened with the clothes and whatever, I mean, it's pointless to offering your clothes, because that person will just feel embarrassed, won't probably change into those clothes anyway, because they're aware of their size. So in the worst scenario, just offer a blanket or whatever. But don't offer your clothes that they're obviously too small. Number 5, trying to squeeze through in a restaurant to take your seat. And I know probably there are a lot of people that are in the same shoes as me. You know, every time when you're walking into the restaurant and the waiter or whoever in the front is kind of welcoming you and pointing you at the right place where you can take a seat. And then as a chubby person, it's almost like encoded in your head that every time when the waiter is kind of pointing you where you can go, you are analyzing which way is the best way to go. If you have a few options to go around it, you feel relieved, you feel confident, you feel comfortable, it feels amazing. The problem starts when there's only one way that you can get to your seat and there's literally that much space to squeeze in. And it happens so many times that I was literally pushing myself through, and I was just literally pushing everyone with my gut, and it's not nice. It is a massive anxiety trigger. It's a stupid little thing, but it's a massive anxiety trigger. You're trying to be as gentle, as delicate when you're passing through as you can, but then you're just basically punching everyone with your hip, with your bum, with your everything. And sometimes if I was in uncomfortable situations like that, I would try to, you know, see any available spaces around me, maybe closer, maybe that I don't need to go deep down the restaurants to push everyone around. But there are situations sometimes when you just can't do anything about it. You just need to put a smile on your face and proudly push your gut through that crowd. So as I said, I'm going to talk to you guys today about 5 anxiety triggers. If you do like videos like that, let me know, because I have plenty more stories to tell you. These were only few things that just, you know, came to my head, and I just decided to sit down and record it for you. Again, just to give you maybe a little bit of comfort, maybe just to acknowledge the fact that you are not alone. There are plenty of people who are struggling with exactly the same thing. And the only solution for that, to overcome this anxiety, is to build this confidence within yourself, is to believe that you are perfect the way you are. And if there is something that you don't like, you have a free way to change it. No one has to stay the same for the rest of their life. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and as always, thank you so much for all your love and all your support. I'll see you in my next video. Stay beautiful, stay strong, and stay safe. Bye, guys.